Springfest at Lowe's means can't miss savings for your home and lawn. Right now, buy 3 bags, get 3 free on Miracle-Gro 3/4 cubic foot all-purpose garden soil. Plus, buy 2, get 1 free on select exterior paint and stain via mail-in rebate. Lowe's, we help, you save. Valid through 4/16, excludes Alaska and Hawaii. While supplies last, selection varies by location. See rebate form for complete list of eligible products. Offer excludes clearance and mist tints and can't be combined with any other offer, promotion, discount, or coupon.
Passover is right around the corner. So today on CityCast Las Vegas, we revisit a conversation that co-host and food historian Sarah Lohman and I had about the origins of deli food in our town. It's an epic kibitz about pastrami, matzo ball soup, bagels, and pickles. Lots of pickles. Note, we mentioned Weiss's Deli a bunch, which is now called Fisher's. So let us know what you think about the switch in ownership. It's Thursday, April 10th. I'm Dayvid Figler, and here's what Las Vegas is talking about.
First of all, hi, David.
Hi, Sarah.
I think I should full disclosure, too, that I am not Jewish. I just worked as a food historian in New York.
I mean, you've got cred. You've actually worked in Jewish spaces regarding food.
Lower East Side Tenement Museum, the Jewish American Historical Society. Like, I am actually hired as a Jewish food scholar.
And we both share a penchant for Jewish cookbooks, which are fun.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah. Okay, so what are those quintessential Jewish foods that we're going to be talking about?
So even if we're not actively thinking about it, Jewish food is still very much like related to and divided by kosher law, right? We've got our meat and our dairy and our parev, and parev is neither. It's eggs and such.
Meat and milk, never the twain shall meet.
Exactly.
Or milk.
You don't mix the milk of the mother with the kid, generally. That's kind of the Old Testament rule. There's also lots of things that you don't eat if you're keeping kosher, but that's a whole different story.
Sure.
So we've got our dairy restaurants, and we can think of those as like the bagel places. We, of course, now see a lot of crossover here in Vegas between the bagel and cream cheese places that are also delis. So they're also serving traditional Jewish, like slow-cooked beefs, generally considered like the lesser cuts, but once you cook them a really long time, they become really like fall apart, soft and delicious. I'm talking your corned beef, your pastrami, your smoked meats, of course, your brisket.
Okay, so those kind of smoked meats. Brisket foremost. What else we got?
And fish is going to go fish is parev, but it goes mostly into the dairy category. So that's going to be like your lox on your bagel with your cream cheese, right? Mm-hmm. I think that those are some of the really sort of typical matzo ball soup, even though it's kind of for Passover. People love to have it year round. It's pretty much a deli treat. We could even go as far as some of the like egg creams and sodas as well. Sodas was actually one of the first things to be marked commercially kosher, too. So those are the things that I'd say most people associate with Jewish culture.
See, I throw in a couple of extras there.
Please.
I think chopped liver is kind of one of those oddball things. I think cooking with matzah.
Totally.
You know, matzah in egg dishes like a matzah brai would be a Jewish food. Also baked goods, right?
Yeah.
So
Challah.
rugelach, challah.
Babka.
Babka, yeah. Hamantashen. I mean, we could go down the list.
A strudel here and there.
All right. Fair. So I got this question for you, my food historian friend.
Yeah.
What is the difference, per se, between a Jewish deli and like an Italian deli or just a place that calls itself deli?
Yeah, I'm really glad you asked this. So delicatessen is actually a German word, and it means little delicious things to eat. So little delicious things to eat is a delicatessen.
Lovely.
A delicate essen, right? Like delicate to eat, right? So we first start seeing those original delicatessens pop up in Manhattan, Lower East Side in the 1840s through 60s. I think the first documented one is early 1860s. They're essentially the first takeout restaurants. They're places you can go get like pre-made, pre-cooked foods. That immigration in the mid-19th century wasn't exclusively Jewish. It was German. So there were Catholics and Lutherans and Jews. But then the next wave is Eastern European and Russian Jewish, and they sort of come into these delicatessens because they were some of the first kosher spaces as well in America. And so then it becomes associated with Jewish culture. You can have an Italian deli. You can have the bodega on the corner, which also has a deli in it. But it all kind of originates from that German terminology for these fast food joints.
I get it. And to me, there's always some crossover. Like one of my favorite places to go kind of experience Jewish food is the New York Bagel and Bakery.
Yeah.
And it is distinctly Italian. I mean, it's the Montesano family.
Yeah.
But, you know, there's elements there, but I wouldn't call it a Jewish deli by any stretch.
Sure. I mean, there's a ton of cultural crossover there because both the Italians and Jews were immigrating in huge numbers around the turn of the 20th century. So we do see a ton of crossover in that culture.
Let's get into Las Vegas. It's not just about the food, but also the environment. So tell me, Sarah, what you know about the history of Jewish food in Las Vegas.
So do you remember last year when I did that event for the Neon Museum with Main Street Provisions and I looked at mid-century casino menus and we recreated some of those dishes?
Oh, yeah. And we were celebrating the compendium of menus that have been preserved by special collections over at UNLV.
Yes, as well. Amazing menu collection. So I looked at a lot of menus from the 60s and the 70s. And what really surprised me is that I found that some of these menus were very Jewish coded.
Huh. What do you mean by that?
Okay, so I'm so glad you brought up chopped liver because chopped liver is a really common appetizer on a lot of these showroom menus. So the showroom you'd go to see like Tony Bennett, for example, played the Showroom International, which is also where Elvis played. And the appetizers are listed as a Suprema fresh fruit au kirsch and fresh chopped chicken livers, and also a seafood cocktail supreme. Now, I've also seen 2 marinated herring and sour cream. That's from the Flamingo Showroom. It was all over the place, from Caesars to the Riviera. Really everywhere, I saw a lot of pickled herring and a lot of chicken livers. Now, a lot of times on those same menus, you wouldn't see as much shellfish. Shellfish is not considered kosher. If you are keeping kosher, if you're very traditionally Jewish, you don't eat shellfish. But it's more like there was a surprising number of Jewish options. And I think it's because this is the era that Las Vegas was moving away from those Wild West themed resorts and creating these resorts that were more geared towards a upper middle class, maybe upper class Hollywood crowd. And a lot of that crowd coming in from Hollywood was Jewish. So this is like kosher-lite. You know, these weren't cooked at a kosher kitchen. But like if you could pick foods that were both from Jewish culture and were like kosher style would be the best way to put it.
There are also a lot of Jewish business people involved in casinos.
Exactly.
I'm thinking of storied Vegas casino names like Burton Cohen and Ash Resnick and Jack and Trotter. These were Jewish folks who were very instrumental in the transition of Las Vegas to a major international destination, and they were at different properties.
And even though on these menus we see a lot of influence of like international cuisine, a lot of French influence, interestingly, a lot of game that we don't see on menus anymore, like local Nevada game, we also see that Jewish influence in the dishes appearing on these menus. But even if they have no other shellfish, they usually still offer shrimp cocktail because that's Vegas.
That shrimp cocktail is the universal language. It transcends religion.
Had to be on the menu. I actually wanted to ask you, Figler. I'm not calling you old here, but you've been in Vegas a good long time.
Sure.
You spent a lot of your wayward youth roaming the streets on your bike. Like, what do you remember about growing up here in Jewish food?
Well, I do remember there were some destination bagel places that are no longer around. There was a spot in Maryland Square, which was on Maryland Parkway and Twain, in a big commercial area over there called Bagel Boys.
Bagel Boys.
And Bagel Boys is where we wound up getting a lot of, desserts and obviously bagels. There was a casino, I recall, called Foxy's Firehouse. They had a little fox with a fire hose as their logo. That was right across the street, just on the north side of Sahara, across from the Sahara Hotel. It was a small little casino, but they had a prominent deli counter in there. And that was really something that was pretty ubiquitous in the 70s and 80s, that a lot of sports books and even like poker rooms had a kiosk off to the side where you get a mile-high corned beef sandwich on rye bread, where you would get the pickle, where you would get, the sort of even matzo ball soup coming out of, a very small area. Places like the Horseshoe had one. And there used to be independent sports books that would dot the strip.
Was corned beef sort of the deli meat of choice out here?
Corned beef was more of the deli meat of choice than pastrami.
Yeah.
Reubens were available. And, Reubens aren't kosher. They're not.
They're not. They got cheese, they got dairy on it.
And they got that Russian dressing on it. But that was my childhood, remembering going into these maybe a little dirty but not too dirty spots and just getting a lot of smoked meats. So, I mean, there have been efforts, and then, let's not forget to mention that there have been quite a few big-name Jewish delis that have set up shop in Las Vegas, past and present. And I want to ask you about that, Sarah. I don't know that any of them ever fully became part of our Jewish community. I'm talking, there was the Carnegie Deli that was at the Mirage. Cantor's was at the TI and for a short time over at Tivoli. There was Stage Deli. Greenberg's, Saginaw Circa, which is an offshoot of Detroit Zingerman's. I mean, none of them have really, seriously resonated. Why do you think that biggies like that don't get ingrained in the local Vegas culture so much?
It's not necessarily that they didn't resonate, but operating a kosher-style Jewish deli is really expensive because the expectation is these, mile-high sandwiches. And although that traditionally, like the brisket or the navel cuts of meat were inexpensive, it does take some processing to turn them into, this delicious tender corned beef or pastrami. And serving that much meat in this day and age is very, very, very expensive. Like beef is expensive. It has a big impact on our environment. So oftentimes the margins on spaces like this are really, really, really small. And they often have trouble surviving outside of their original spaces. It's really hard to franchise a traditional Jewish deli like that.
If you think you know everything there is to know about Las Vegas, well, think again. Duck Duck Shed is a 3-day festival where the city's true story comes to life. From April 24th through the 27th, the Neon Museum brings you exclusive tours, expert-led panels, and engaging conversations with the architects, designers, and storytellers who built and are still building Las Vegas into the entertainment capital of the world. Duck Duck Shed, it's a phrase from the seminal architecture book Learning from Las Vegas. I'm excited to have been invited to give a talk at the fest about how we do and don't continue to learn lessons about our city's unique design. So, whether you're an industry professional or just love the city, Duck Duck Shed offers a deeper look into our growth, culture, and history. Tickets are on sale now at duckduckshed.com. Register today and be part of this one-of-a-kind celebration of Las Vegas. Don't miss out.
Get ready for Netflix's gripping new medical drama, Pulse. Set in a cutting-edge Miami trauma center, third-year resident Dr. Danny Sims is unexpectedly thrust into a promotion when beloved chief resident Dr. Xander Phillips gets suspended. Then, with the emotional and physical stakes at their highest, a storm will push the hospital and its residents to their limits. Witness how life can change in a heartbeat when you're operating under pressure. Watch Pulse, only on Netflix.
So let's get to it. What are the best Jewish delis or places for people to get Jewish food in Las Vegas?
Well, I feel like we should also shout out the bagel episode we did. We're not going to go too deep into bagels today because we went deep. People can look that up at what our favorites were. And
Bagel-wise,
to Bagel Cafe, which I have not been to in person, but I liked their bagel. I found them to be the closest to what I was familiar with from New York and sort of kind of missed day to day. Mm-hmm. So as far as delis, like my opinion, as far as like down in my neck of the woods in Henderson, we have Weiss's. And Weiss's is interesting because of those two doors, and one goes to the sit-down restaurant, which is basically the deli. That's where you're going to get your meat meal. And if you go to the left, that's the bakery, the bagels, the cream cheese. That's sort of like
the big counter.
Yeah, the big counter. It's like a dairy restaurant, or probably many people don't know this word, but like an appetizing restaurant like Russ and Daughters, right?
That's a famous New York spot.
Famous New York spot that serves only dairy or Parev foods, essentially, or Parv foods.
Okay.
So Weiss's is solid. Like I've had a great breakfast there. I've had a great matzo ball soup. I've had excellent latkes. There's some also very non-Jewish foods on there, but are very like East Coast. Like they have Taylor ham or pork roll, depending what part of New Jersey you're from. So like it's always been kosher style is generally what it's called.
Interesting.
Weiss's, I just want to shout out to, has amazing baked goods, including challah, babka, I think, black and white cookies, which aren't your favorite, David. And I haven't had theirs, so I can't say. But rugelach, they got the whole 9 yards. So that's like kind of my pick to get like everything you want and need from a Jewish cooking space.
Sure. And maybe we take one quick step back, and that is, what do you need to see in the place to kind of feel like I'm in the right spot? You know what I'm saying? Like you mentioned at Weiss's, there is the counter where the baked goods are. And then Was there something like in Weiss's to you that said, I'm in a Jewish deli? I feel like this is part of the Jewish culture here.
Yeah, for me, it's the black and white cookies, which
it's just having that cookie on the menu.
Black and white cookies, babka, and challah.
Those items
to me are like really a signal of like, we got the foods that you need, that you crave, that are going to feel like home to you.
I have some more criteria, and I wonder what you think about it.
Yeah.
So as far as food items go, I want to see an array of fish items. I'm not a stickler. I don't need to see a gefilte fish because, frankly, it's disgusting to most people, although it can be done right. So I'll look to see, is there a sable on the menu? Are there two different kinds of loxes? You know, like how deep the fish menu goes is like a thing for me.
Herring
as well, of course. I also look for like little items at the checkout. Halva.
Oh, yeah.
You know, which is a very
particular
chalky
brand?
No, not particular brand. I mean, Joya is the big one, but sometimes places will have a homemade halva.
That is cool. Yeah, usually sesame paste, American-style sesame paste, egg whites, sugar, and often chocolate.
Yeah, and that's just an item. It makes you feel like, oh, I remember that. You know, Dr. Brown's on the menu. That's a brand of soda, but also New York Seltzer. Also kind of like a nice thing if a deli has it, is that they make a chocolate phosphate.
Oh, wow. It's a phosphate for you, not an egg cream.
It's a phosphate for me, not an egg cream, but either on a menu, and not a lot of places do that. So these food items, if they're in place, I'm like, okay, this is a legit Jewish deli. But I'm going to say one other thing, a vibe. A certain kind of vibe. A smell in the air, maybe something a little, again, fishy, salty in the air, maybe a pickly smell, or at least the visual of seeing pickles somewhere, if not on the tables, which is a lament that not a lot of places in Vegas will anymore bring you out a bowl of pickles, half sours, maybe some tomatoes as well.
I'm a new pickle fan.
That to me is quintessential.
New
I love
pickles
that.
have just like kissed the brine, and it's still crispy and delicious and wonderful.
Last thing I'm going to say about a deli experience, especially in Las Vegas, is that to me, the best delis are the one that my mom would walk into. Now, my mom has passed, but she was a big deli fan. If she could walk in and find a comfortable spot or feel comfortable, that was a good deli. And if she complained about where she was seated or about the food or anything else, that there would be established protocols to deal with older Jewish women so that no one was embarrassed and everyone felt okay, no matter how they approached it.
Wow.
It could be with sass, it could be with empathy, but whatever it is, that there was that vibe where everyone is welcome, even David's mother.
Oh.
Right? You know? And even though she's not with us anymore, I kind of bring her with me when I go into a new deli and I ask that question.
Oh, your Jewish mother never leaves you.
Yeah.
She's there forever. But listen, I shouted out my favorite, like my go-to deli. Like, what is your go-to deli? Or are there like other spots where you pick up like a taste here and there? Where would your mother go?
That's a really good question. And I think, not to pile on the praise, but of all the delis that existed when she was still around, she would be most at home at Weiss's. I mean, back then it was called Samueli's.
Oh, that's right.
Before it was Weiss's. Yeah. But that was a place that was small enough. It was contained. It had, for lack of a better word, as close a vibe as she was used to. She liked Bagel Cafe, but it was a big space. It's a very large space. It's a big menu. It is, Jewish forward, but it's not a deli in the traditional sense of the things that we're talking about. But they have a lot of those items on there. And I say that Bagel Cafe is an excellent deli to do the deli experience in Las Vegas. And I'll say that when tourists come to Las Vegas and they're looking for deli food, a lot of them land at this one location, and that is called Bagel Mania.
Oh, sure. Next to the convention center.
Correct.
Yeah.
That's their current location. Sarah, we didn't have Bagel Mania in our bagel episode.
No.
We haven't talked about them yet. What is the hesitancy to talk about Bagel Mania?
Look,
have you ever been there, first of all?
No, I've never been there because, my personal reason for not going is that it's the same owners of Pink Box Donut, who are the same owners as Siegel Sweets, and I do not agree with their business practices.
Yeah, the family that owns Bagel Mania is probably well known as the owners of the Siegel Sweets, which is a sort of ubiquitous weekly, sometimes monthly, sometimes long-term residences for people. And people could look up our episode on that one. So, I mean, let me just say this, Sarah.
Yeah.
The original Bagel Mania was absolutely my mom's favorite and my dad's favorite deli in Las Vegas.
Oh, wow.
For the last years of their life. So Bagel Mania had been there since 1989. The owner died. The business was for sale. The Siegels purchased it in 2017. They ran it as it was for a long time with the same menu. Then they abandoned that location. They built a big fancy place over by the convention center. They maintained the name Bagel Mania. They have reinvented the menu. It is unrecognizable. If my mom or dad were to walk in this place, they would think they were more over at the airport and not in the old Bagel Mania. It just doesn't have that same vibe. But I did go there.
And the food?
The food was good.
It's fine.
I mean, the bagels were fine. The food was fine. The prices were okay. But it wouldn't be a place that my mom would feel comfortable walking into. But if you want Jewish food or deli food, it is a fine option.
Is there any place on the Strip that is a place that someone who's here touristing or conferencing can hop in and get some good Jewish food?
Yes, there are these deli outposts that still exist. If you go to the Luxor, you can go to the Backstage Deli. If you are downtown, some of the owners of El Cortez are Jewish, and they've made sure that there are Jewish delicacies on the menu. You can get a solid matzo ball soup at the coffee shop in El Cortez. You can get matzo brie in the morning. They do have a special Hanukkah menu that they serve. They'll have the brisket, and it comes with challah and the whole thing. So,
I didn't know.
El Cortez is actually a decent destination any time of year, but especially around the holidays. So, that does exist. There have to be some other shout outs that we do really quick. As far as bakery go, all these places that we mentioned have a baked good counter, and they all have these items that we're talking about. There's also the various standalone Fried's Bakery, which is Jewish forward. And we don't want to leave out the fact that some of the supermarkets in town have really embraced big kosher sections. I don't know if there's any bigger than the one at Smith's over on Lake Mead and Rampart.
Right.
So, Sarah, how do you rank the overall Jewish food scene in Las Vegas?
I think we've got a couple solid spots, not as many as we used to, but I think that this is also a conversation that's happening nationally about Jewish food, because a lot of Jewish food and the flavor of it for many of us is bathed in nostalgia, right? It has to do with either some sort of distant memory or a family memory, the way your grandma used to make something, things like that. And that's in a way part of the problem with Jewish food and making sure it survives, because since the Jewish people, many have been pushed out of their homelands for generations and generations. Unlike an Italian immigrant or a Chinese immigrant, there isn't that homeland to continue to reflect on and to continue to reinfuse the culture. And so we actually see a lot of Jewish food traditions dying out, because if you have to have matzo ball soup the way that your grandmother made it and your grandmother passes away, then that food tradition is lost. So there is a more modern movement of Jewish chefs sort of updating these classic Jewish foods and these deli foods. And when this first started happening with Mile End in New York a decade or more ago, there was a lot of pushback. You can't change this. It has to be a certain way. And the argument is if this food stays stuck in the past, it cannot evolve and it will not survive. So I think we're seeing classic Jewish cuisine struggling a little bit right now, and it needs to reach this tipping point to continue to evolve.
I love that idea. I love that there might be some chef out there somewhere willing to come to Las Vegas and try some innovation that doesn't completely step all over your nostalgia.
Yeah.
Sarah Lohman, thank you so much for joining your thoughts here on CityCast Las Vegas.
Thanks, David.
That's all for today here on CityCast Las Vegas. If you enjoyed the show, go tell a friend. You can also rate our show. We love those high ratings. Leave us a review and subscribe to our morning newsletter. We'll be back tomorrow morning with more news from around the city. Till then, stay lucky.